All right, it looks like Shedeur Sanders is on go mode. He's not playing games when it comes down to taking this QB1 position.
Shedeur Sanders just sent a message that's going to rattle the entire Cleveland Browns organization. And honestly, it might be the most confident thing anyone has said in that building since they traded for Deshaun Watson. Sanders isn't talking about just winning a training camp competition. He's talking about being one of the greatest quarterbacks to ever play this game. Bold words for a guy who started just 7 games last season. But here's the thing, he might be the only person in Cleveland who actually believes in what's happening there. Because the rest of the NFL is looking at this roster, and they're seeing something completely different. I'm not content just being on no team. I'm trying to be one of the greatest. That's what Sanders said on his YouTube channel, and it wasn't some casual throwaway line. He meant every word. The second-year quarterback has been locked in all offseason, and he's made it crystal clear that he's not just fighting Deshaun Watson for a starting job, he's fighting for his legacy. Sanders reflected on his rookie year, specifically a Week 17 win over the Steelers, where he felt like he accomplished something real. Remember, this is a guy who spent most of the season as a bench warmer. When he finally got his shot, he took hits, he got back up, and he kept
promise, but the thing ain't good right now, and maybe we'll find ourselves in a spot for a quarterback. But I think there's so much more to that. You mentioned Todd Monken. Todd Monken, whether I want to say it or not, and I hate talking about it, and I don't want to take it further than this, could end up being a one-and-done coach, and I don't want that to happen.
Fighting. After one particular play, he got up and flexed after a third down run where he didn't even pick up the first down. Critics slammed him for it. But Sanders didn't care. To him, that moment represented everything he'd been through. He'd been written off, counted out, and left on the pine for most of the year. And in that moment, he survived.
There's still more. Sanders reflected on his rookie year by talking about a Week 17 win over the Steelers, which he felt like after being a bench warmer for the early part of the season, he accomplished something by the way he kept getting back up. He said, "We were playing the Steelers."
He evaded a tackle that should have knocked his head off. And for him, that was worth celebrating. But here's where things get complicated for Sanders and the Browns. Because while he's out here declaring himself the future of the franchise, the organization he plays for is being laughed at by just about everyone in the national media. ESPN recently dropped their rankings of the best starting lineups across all 32.
Let's get right into things. This is courtesy of NBC Sports. Okay, Pro Football Talk. Shedeur Sanders quote, "I'm not content just being on a team. I'm trying to be one of the greatest." Here it says Browns
Two NFL teams. The Los Angeles Rams took the top spot. Myles Garrett now lines up as their edge rusher alongside Byron Young. They've got Matt Stafford, Karen Williams, Puka Nacua, a legitimate Super Bowl contender. The Cleveland Browns? They came in at 31st, dead last, essentially. Only the Miami Dolphins are below them. And when you look at why ESPN ranked them that low, the answer is painfully obvious. Their biggest weakness is quarterback. Both Deshaun Watson and Shedeur Sanders. The national media doesn't have faith in either one. And honestly, can you blame them? What makes this even worse is the quarterback competition itself. Todd Monken has made it clear that Watson is the favorite to be the Week 1 starter.
They lose games because they aren't ready for the league. They haven't, been in the games. There are just other teams actually trying to win and making it their goal to go to the playoffs. And so you could have a
starter. Despite everything, the terrible performances, the injuries, the massive contract that looks worse by the day, Watson still has the inside track. And Sanders? He's the backup. The guy who's telling the world he wants to be one of the greatest, and he can't even get on the field ahead of a quarterback who's been one of the biggest busts in NFL history. It's a brutal reality. But Sanders seems unfazed. He's approaching this like a man possessed, like every rep in practice is a chance to prove the doubters wrong. And that kind of mentality might be the only thing this franchise has going for it right now. Because outside of Sanders' confidence, there's not much to be optimistic about in Cleveland. The ESPN ranking wasn't just about quarterbacks either. They pointed to the offensive line as an X factor, but not in a good way. Emmanuel McNeil Warren was called out as a non-starter who needs serious work on his coverage skills. A natural box safety who'll have to play a linebacker-like role because he can't hang with receivers. That's not the kind of glowing review you want for a...
And you go, well, it ain't so bad. But there's plenty of people, they think that this quarterback conversation that we have almost every day didn't have one yesterday. And right now, I'm not having one right now. That this quarterback conversation that we have nearly every day is a waste, and that they're already looking forward to 2027. If you see 31st, I want to know whether or not people think that that's a positive or a negative.
Yeah, I actually could spin this as a positive.
Spin it.
I could spin it as a positive because young teams lose in this league. Doesn't mean that there's not talent there. Young teams with talent, with young talent.
Second-round pick. And then there's the defense as a whole, which used to be the one thing Browns fans could count on. Myles Garrett is gone. Denzel Ward might be on his way out. Grant Delpit's future is up in the air. And the new defensive coordinator, Mike Ruttenberg, is replacing a fan favorite who, despite his flaws, knew how to get the most out of his players. Here's the thing about replacing a guy like Myles Garrett. He wasn't just the best player on the team. He was the emotional leader. He made everybody's job easier just by being on the field. Now Jared versus the guy, and he's good. He's really good. But he's not Myles Garrett. And that means everyone else's job just got harder. Ruttenberg is exciting. He's fresh, he's 44, and he seems like he actually has a clue. But we've seen what happens when coordinators refuse to adjust their schemes. We've seen talented defenses get torn apart because the guy calling plays is too stubborn to change. So as much as Browns fans want to believe Ruttenberg is the answer, there's still that voice in the back of their heads telling them to keep their expectations in check. The situation is so bad that some fans are already looking past this season entirely. They're talking about 2027 like it's the real goal. And on
with that perfect storm, that right timing in what is supposed to be a big-time quarterback draft, and then that sets that quarterback up so much.
It might be. Because if the Browns finish 31st in roster rankings, if they lose a bunch of games, if Watson continues to stink and Sanders doesn't get a real shot, then what? The team gets a top draft pick in what's supposed to be a loaded quarterback class. Darian Mensah. Dante Moore. Guys who are already being mocked to Cleveland in early 2027 projections. That's where the hope is for some people. Not in the current roster. Not in Watson. Not even in Sanders.
I do feel like
I think you're trying to spin it into a positive, but I think you feel dreadful about this, and I think I want to hear you tell me the truth.
It's not good for Todd Monken.
No, it's not. I think it's worse for Andrew Berry, to be honest with you.
Like the young, talented teams do lose.
In a quarterback who hasn't even declared for the draft yet. That's a brutal place to be for a fan base that's been through hell and back. But there's a darker side to all of this. Because losing on purpose, or even just losing naturally with a young roster, has consequences beyond draft position. Todd Monken could be a one-and-done.
Getting up and flexing after a third down run that he failed to pick up the first down. He said, to me, that's an accomplishment. This dude tried to knock my head off. That's the whole thing. I'm celebrating. I know it's fourth down, but I just evaded this tackle. I just got away. Sanders and the Browns didn't have a lot to celebrate last year.
Head coach Andrew Berry might not survive this season as general manager. And if they bring in a new GM, you know what happens. That new guy always wants to reinvent the wheel. He brings in his own players. He has his own opinions on quarterbacks. And suddenly, the young guys you thought were exciting don't fit the new regime's vision. That's how rebuilds get extended.
Kevin Stefanski on that. Are you going to finish the vision, whatever that is, with Andrew Berry at the end of this year? Like these things, if you bring in another GM, remember, they always think they got to reinvent the wheel when they get here. So now the players that we like and
that's how a 5-year plan becomes a 10-year plan. So while some fans are looking at the 31st ranking as a positive, a chance to stockpile talent and land a franchise quarterback, the reality is way more complicated. There's no guarantee that losing now leads to winning later. Ask the Jacksonville Jaguars. Ask the Chicago Bears. Losing culture is hard to shake. And for Shedeur Sanders, this is his reality right now. He's a second-year quarterback on a team that's been written off before the season even starts. He's competing against a guy who's been one of the biggest disappointments in NFL history. And the entire fan base is already talking about replacing him with some college kid who hasn't taken a single professional snap. That's the weight on his shoulders. And yet, he's out here saying he wants to be one of the greatest. He's not just content being on the team. He's not happy just collecting a paycheck. He wants to prove everyone wrong. He wants to be the guy who turns this franchise around. But what happens if he doesn't get the chance? What if Watson wins the job and plays just well enough to keep it? What if Sanders spends another season on the bench, watching a below-average quarterback lead a below-average team to a below-average record? At some point, you have to wonder if he'll even get a real opportunity in Cleveland. The organization has already shown they're willing to commit massive resources to other quarterbacks. Watson's contract is an albatross that makes it almost impossible to move on from him. And if the Browns do end up with a top pick in 2027, there's a very real possibility they use it on someone else. Someone not named Shedeur Sanders. That's the cruel irony of all of.
Seen that with this generation of the Cleveland Browns. So as exciting as Mike Rutenberg, as excitable as he is, as fresh as he seems to be, I know he's 44, but it seems like a young 44, as exciting as that can be, I still got to keep him at arm's length because he's replacing a guy that was a fan.
This. Sanders is saying all the right things. He's putting in the work. He's got the mindset of a champion. But he might not be in a position to actually succeed. He might be stuck in Cleveland, on a roster that's ranked 31st, behind a quarterback that everyone knows isn't the answer, on a team that's already planning for the next guy. The deck is stacked against him in ways that have nothing to do with his talent. And that's what makes this story so.
It doesn't seem like they have a very much amount of faith in either one. And then you get into the Dylan Gabriel, Taylor Green stuff, which doesn't really matter a whole lot. Their X factor is the offensive line. Certainly true. Non-starter to know, they wrote Emmanuel McNeil-Warren.
Compelling. Because if Sanders actually pulls this off, if he somehow beats Watson, leads this roster to relevance, and becomes the guy Cleveland's been searching for, it'll be one of the greatest underdog stories in NFL history. But if he doesn't, it won't be because he wasn't good enough. It'll be because he was never given a fair shot in the first place. So when you look at the Cleveland Browns right now, you're not just looking at a bad team. You're looking at a franchise at a crossroads. A team that traded away its best player. A team with a quarterback controversy that isn't really a controversy because everyone knows who's going to win. A team with a coach and a GM who might be coaching for their jobs from week one. And in the middle of all that chaos is Shedeur Sanders, a 23-year-old kid who just wants to be great. He might be the only person in that building who still believes in the vision. And honestly, he might be the only person who can actually make it happen. But the clock is ticking. The pressure is mounting. And in Cleveland, hope is a dangerous thing to have. Because it's always been followed by disappointment. And for Sanders and the Browns, that pattern might be about to repeat itself once again. The only question is whether this time, the ending will be different.